What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a Steve Wynn Top 10 brought to us courtesy of our friend, longtime patron and supporter of the channel, Slade Said. Thank you, Slade Said. I always appreciate you. I couldn't find anything about Steve Wynn really in my research, but luckily Slade Said knows so much about music. Trust me, go watch some of the other top 10s that I've done for him. He knows a lot about Steve Wynn, and I just really hadn't even heard of Steve Wynn. So here's what Slade said about Steve Wynn. He said, "This is not a list that was easy to make. They never are, since it's based on an artist whom I hold in very high esteem. I can't say for sure, but he may just be my favorite composer since Lennon and McCartney had their little band in the 60s. He's certainly in my top 3. Now, that is high praise. Like I said, Slade Said knows a ton about music. He's written so many great songs that it's almost impossible to understand these all came from one guy. Because of this, I actually made a number of lists where I made a top 10 list for his rock out songs, his ballads, his should have been monster hit songs, and so forth. Because I don't want to spend the rest of 2022 creating lists for him only, LOL. I had to focus a bit, and so I had to kill a lot of darlings to end with just a single top 10 list. I can't guarantee you there won't be another top 10 list for him later on, but for now, this top 10 list is what I'll go with. He says Steve Wynn, the artist I'm talking about here, was the founder, leader, and main songwriter of the Dream Syndicate, who I have heard of, but the Dream Syndicate released 4 great studio albums from 1982 to 1988, plus an absolutely fantastic live album, Live at Raji's in 1989, before disbanding, and then revived again in 2017, since when they have released 3 new albums and a new one planned for June of this year of 2022 when I'm recording this. Steve Wynn then went solo, releasing his first album in 1990 and continued to release albums as a solo artist right up until 2010. He released 11 ordinary studio albums, plus a number of collections of rarities and outtakes. During this period, he's also a member of the Paisley Underground supergroup Gutterball, with whom he released 2 albums, and he co-founded the side project, the Baseball Project, in 2007 with Scott McGaughey, who was involved with the Minus 5 and the Young Fresh Fellows. And they were joined by drummer Linda Pittman, who played in Steve Wynn's backing album on later albums and became his girlfriend, and Peter Buck, of course, from R.E.M. Later, Mike Mills from R.E.M. also joined the project. They have released 3 albums, with the latest being released in 2014. You see what I'm saying here, guys? Slade Said knows a lot about music. Anyway, back to Steve Wynn. As a solo artist, this list is based only on the albums using Steve Wynn's name, i.e. his solo albums from 1990 to 2010. For the list, I've tried to show the variety of Steve Wynn, and I've tried to minimize the number of songs from one album. This means I've left out some songs that really, if someone put a gun to my head, would have been in my actual top 10. But for the aforementioned reasons, had to be replaced by other songs. With all that said, it's time to kick off the list with number 10. You see it below. We have Silver Lining. Slade Said we kick off the list with a good up-tempo rocking song with almost 60s garage band sound on the guitars. Silver Lining is the lead-off track from his 5th album, Sweetness and Light, which was released in 1997. For some reason, when it was released, I wasn't in love with the album as I had been with his previous work, but I've changed my mind 180 degrees on that. It's a great album, and picking just one song was tricky. The song How's My Little Girl was a single and could easily have been my pick, as could have a number of other songs. I would never pick a cover song for a list like this, but his cover version of the Kinks' This Strange Effect, which is included on this album, really needs to be heard. So I just suggest listening to that song after this list. All right? Thanks again, Slade Said. We are not going to have the music in this video. It would have been a Vimeo link below. Check it out. Take the journey with me. Let's get after it. Silver Lining. Slade Said described it perfectly, like a 60s garage band sound. I love the female vocals coming back in there on the look over there. My man doesn't like to fly, right? I don't like to fly either. I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, I'll do it, but I'm not a big fan of it. I haven't had to do it in a long time. But just out of JFK, the turbulence was terrifying. I held my breath and did my best to shake my fear of flying. I'm not so heroic, cavalier, or even stoic. You want catastrophe? It's nothing you want to see. And then the look over there, the sun is shining, breaking the clouds that block the way. Look over there, a silver lining. Right over there, we'll look at that. Then they're right over Wichita, so they're halfway through. So we're starting off at JFK over here in the eastern part of the United States. We're at Wichita, right in the heart of the U.S. in Wichita, Kansas, right in the heart of the journey, right in the middle of the journey. And the flight attendant started screaming, and he placed his head between his knees and started dreaming. Then we get just shy of LAX. They're going cross country in the U.S. The preacher led us all in a prayer. I had objections, but I decided that I wouldn't dare. I'm not ordinary. Evidence is quite contrary. You want catastrophe? It's nothing you want to see. And then the look over there, the sun is shining. I just really enjoyed it. I wish I could tell you who was on all the instruments, but there's no musician listing from the list that I am using here from the Genius. Next up at number 9, we have Younger. Slade Said we started with a good old-fashioned rock sound. We'll continue with another up-tempo rock sound, albeit with a different sound to it. The song selection Younger is from the album Kerosene Man, his debut as a solo artist in 1990. Slade said this album is almost a perfect 10 out of 10 for him. Only a couple of songs, including the title track, prevent me from giving it the perfect score. Spoiler alert, this album is the only album on the list where I have selected 2 songs. Steve Wynn writes in the sleeve notes that he wanted to create something that explored a lot of new areas that he hadn't done with the Dream Syndicate, and this album is certainly proof of that. The variety in styles and sounds on the album is pretty amazing, and there are a lot of guest musicians helping him out to create these sounds. Some of the artists are his old friends from the Dream Syndicate and other Paisley Underground bands, but other artists are new, such as Fernando Saunders on some songs, who had previously played with Lou Reed. And on this song, we find Robert Macchi on Lunatic Fringe guitar, Hal Gelb from the band Giant Sand on Fringed Lunatic guitar, Jim Lang on keyboards, Mark Walton Dream Syndicate on bass, DJ Bonebreak. Slade said, what a name, I will agree, on drums. Robert Wood on free jazz, whatever that means. Steve Berlin on baritone sax, Richard Green on violin, and Denny Fongheiser on percussion. Well, I'm going to know who's playing everything on here thanks to Slade Said. Let's check it out. All right, Younger. I'll tell you what, the highlight on this, I think it's probably why Slade Said put all the guys on there that were on this, was the instrumentation. The arrangement was fantastic. The guitar work, Robert Macchi and Hal Gelb, was unbelievable. And DJ Bonebreak on the drums, wow, man. I mean, the keys were great as well, but this song just had it all going on instrumental. And a cleverly written song as well by Steve. Someone asked, why is youth wasted on the rude and uncouth, blinded on cheap vermouth, a would-be poet in Duluth, short time on time, long in the tooth, fantasies of John Wilkes Booth, come back when you're younger, better minds and bigger parts, larger scale and cheaper parts, faded patrons of the arts, high-heeled post-operation tarts, bitter ale and blunted darts, sliding quickly down the charts, come back when you're younger. But man, the instrumentation on that was absolutely top-notch. Now we're to number 8. You see it below, For All I Care. And Slade said for our number 8 spot, we changed gears a bit. From the album Melting in the Dark from 1996, the Boston band Come was recruited as his backing group. The band actually didn't know who Steve Wynn was, so in order to check out if they thought they'd be a good match, they listened to his previous record, Fluorescent. Now, Fluorescent was a very somber record, mostly acoustic, and since Come had played a garage, post-punk style of music, they were absolutely not convinced that this made sense. But after meeting Steve Wynn and listening to some of his other albums, especially the Dream Syndicate era, they accepted the invitation. The result was a much more back-to-the-roots sounding garage rock album than any of his other solo albums at that time. The song For All I Care is a mid-tempo ballad built on a Latin rhythm and is one of the few songs off that album that is not dirty alternative rock. For All I Care, Steve had a bad breakup with a girl. We figured out towards the end, is there nothing I can do, nothing I can say, nothing I can be to make you want to stay. The sun might die tonight, leaving nothing in the sky. For all I care, it can die. For all I care. So he doesn't care about the moon might fall tonight. I really did enjoy the Latin-infused stuff, especially at the beginning by the band Come. Slade said it was exactly right. That definitely did work well, and they're in a totally different sounding song than we've got so far. So I enjoyed that one. Now up to number 7, we got Freakstar. Slade said for our number 7 spot, we jump a bit in time. The song Freakstar is from Steve Wynn's 9th studio album, Tick, Tick, Tick from 2006. Tick, Tick, Tick was the second album credited to Steve Wynn and the Miracle 3, although 2 of the members of the Miracle 3 had played on the album Here Come the Miracles. Makes sense. Well, the songs are still mostly credited to Steve Wynn alone. The albums with the Miracle 3 do feel more like a band effort than his other albums, and the band members do help out writing some of the songs as well. The Miracle 3 consists of Linda Pittman on drums, Jason Victor on lead guitars. He would also join the Dream Syndicate when they reformed in 2017 as a replacement to former lead guitarist Paul B. Cutler, and we got Dave DeCastro on bass. The albums with the Miracle 3, including Here Come the Miracles, are generally speaking a little less melody-focused and in some ways seem more created for live performances with fewer overdubs and more in-your-face guitar rock music. Still, there are plenty of great songs to be found on these releases, one of which is this one, Freakstar. Freakstar. Well, the song kind of had it all, right? Linda Pittman's drumming was fantastic. Jason Victor was a star on the guitar. DeCastro on the bass was fine. I mean, there was good work there, but man, the arrangement of this thing was rocking. I thought that Steve sounded the best he sounded on any of these songs thus far. Clever writing, as I've already grown to expect, but came on like a force of nature, sparked by unnatural desires. Getting closer all the time, I braced myself, but cannot read the signs. He was calling on the radio, begging you to turn away. I saw something in your eyes that told me common sense was not a game you play. And then we get the Freakstar, How I Wonder Where You Are. Freakstar, How I Wonder What You Are. What a play on the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, right? Man, yeah, it was just a really well done song. Probably my fave that I've heard so far, but we still got 6 songs left. And we're up to There Will Come a Day. Slade said the album Here Comes the Miracles, released in 2001, was Steve Wynn's first double album. The backing group included Linda Pittman, who played drums on Sweetness and Light album, and Dave DeCastro from what would become the Miracle 3, as well as other guest stars such as Hal Gelb on guitars from Giant Sand and Chris Kakavas on piano from Green on Red. Just like the later Miracle 3 albums, the sound on this album is more loose and garage band-like compared to the previous albums, except for the Melting in the Dark album, which had a similar vibe. I see that AllMusic.com has it as a career high point at the time. I don't think I agree with that, but it's definitely a very solid album with several good songs, such as the pick here, There Will Come a Day, which has a chorus which will simply be stuck in your head, which is, there will come a day when all of the evil will be washed away. The patient will be rewarded and their tormentors will pay. There will come a day, Lord, there will come a day. Slade said, considering what is going on in the world at the present time, I hope this is true. Amen to that one, brother. Longest song on this list. There Will Come a Day, now my new fave so far that I've heard on this list. So far, Slade said is organizing these in a pretty good manner, 10 through 6 for me. I already mentioned everybody on the instruments here, right? The musicians. The arrangement of this song is just fantastic, and I thought Steve sounded great on this one too. I was thinking of all my troubles, as people sometimes will. Everyone who'd done me wrong and those who would wrong me still. In a fit of desperation, I found myself on my knees, wishing pain and suffering on all my enemies. I prayed for a loss of limb and lingering disease, of blight and devastation and assorted miseries. But as I made my wishes and as I cast my spells, I stopped myself and said a prayer and said these words to myself. There will come a day when all the evil will be washed away. The patient will be rewarded and their tormentors will pay. There will come a day, Lord. There will come a day. I just read you all the lyrics because I just think they're fantastic. It reminds me of Romans, the book of Romans in the Bible, chapter 14, verses 10 through 12. They say this, why do you pass judgment on your brother, or why do you despise your brother? For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God, for it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me and every tongue shall confess to God. So then each of us will give an account of himself to God. So whether Steve is referencing that, but basically at some point your enemies are going to pay. You don't have to be the ones to get them, whether you believe in whether you're a Christian like me, whether you believe in something like karma, whatever it is. But it really does get stuck in your head, man. It's in my head right now, just as Slade said. All right, let's enter the top 5. We start out with Grace. You see it below. Slade said, we enter the top 5 of this list with a song from Steve Wynn's second solo album, Dazzling Display. I probably prefer Kerosene Man to Dazzling Display as an album due to the high points on that album and maybe a bit of nostalgia, but in terms of cohesiveness, this album could be his best. There's not a single song I would even consider skipping on this album. The list of musicians helping Steve Wynn on this album is pretty vast and includes many of the same who helped him on his first solo album, plus a couple of new ones. On our pick, the majestic song Grace, we find Kirk Swan on lead guitar, Robert Mache on guitar, Mark Walton on bass, and Kevin Jarvis on drums, outside of Steve Wynn himself on guitars and vocals, of course. Grace. One of the things that Steve's really good at, besides the songwriting, obviously, is power choruses. What I mean by that is where the instrumentation and everything kicks up so much more in the chorus, which causes it to stick in your head. The instrumentation on here and arrangement was fantastic, as all of these have been. He really does bring in the right musicians to pump these up. And Grace, he's talking about a woman, right? She walks in the room with the grace of a panther, and she doesn't see anything at all. Spills coffee on a pure white rug, smashes the cup against the wall. She says, and then we get that chorus, right? How can I turn it on and off again? How can I turn it on? He repeats that. Oh, Grace, there must be a better time and place. She says, I've forgotten more than I'll ever know, and I don't know anything anymore. I've been dumb and I've been blind, but I can't seem to find my way out of this bind. So what a just good songwriting. I skipped one verse in there, but we go back to that chorus a couple times. Just sticks in the head. Really good choice for number 5. Now we're up to number 4, Cats and Dogs from the album My Midnight. So like I said, for my number 4 pick, I went with a song that would have featured in a should have been a hit list if I had made such a list. Cats and Dogs is a very catchy song with a smoother sound than most of the other songs on this list. As an album, the style is not very far removed from the album before this, Sweetness and Light, which makes sense as Steve Wynn used the same producer as on that album, John Agnello, who had produced for artists like Dinosaur Jr. and Patti Smith. Steve Wynn recalls the time of recording the album as a once-in-a-lifetime experience with musicians where everything just clicked the right way, where the best players convene on the right material in the right setting at the right time. That's high praise. The guest musicians on the album were guitarist Chris Brokaw from the bands Come, Codeine, and Pullman, bassist Tony Mayomi from Pere Ubu, They Might Be Giants, and Bob Mould, keyboardist Joe McGinty from Psychedelic Furs and Ronnie Spector, and drummer Linda Pittman, previously of Zulu's Pedals, but we now know her as part of the Miracle 3, of course, in the third song so far, and she's been on here. Let's check it out. Cats and Dogs, definitely a smoother sound, as Slade said, than the other tracks. Just really well done, right? Everything is smooth, and I think it's Linda on backing with him. I like that sound, that difference there with that female backing on there. So I don't know, where does it go? What's left to show? I don't know. I don't mind. There's nothing to find. No kind of sign. I don't mind. I know they say the evidence is real. Anyway, it's not the way I feel. It's no big deal. Cats and dogs. So he's saying it's raining cats and dogs, I'm assuming here. Or cats and dogs don't get along. It's one or the other. Probably cats and dogs don't get along, now that I think about it. Between him and his girl, right? Are you sad to feel you've been, it is so bad. Are you sad? All the fears and all the tears, and then it appears, they fade into years. I know they say it fades into the night. Anyway, we fight and never get it right, cats and dogs. So cats and dogs don't get along, but it's also raining cats and dogs with the amount of adversity that we're meeting. So really well done there. We're to the top 3. We've got Layer by Layer. Slade said, following his first 2 well-produced and very ambitious albums, Steve Wynn wanted to do something more stripped back, and the result was the album Fluorescent, his third album, which was released in 1993. The first track on the album, Follow Me, indicates that the album is a different beast to the others, as it is just Steve Wynn singing over an acoustic guitar with a subtle organ, some short electric guitar noise by Hal Gelb, and a few sound effects added throughout. An excellent song, starting with a very somber and moody album. The ballads work best on this album with the Simply Astonishing Carry a Torch. This should have been a massive hit. Never Ending Rain and our pick Layer by Layer being the finest examples. On Layer by Layer, Steve Wynn is joined by Gary Eaton on bass, Kevin Jarvis on drums, Robert Lloyd on piano, and on backing vocals we find Victoria Williams and English singer-songwriter novelist John Wesley Hardin. Slade says, yes, the name is based on the Bob Dylan album of the same name. His real name is Wesley Stace. I will return to him on a later list, as he's an excellent singer-songwriter and storyteller in his own right. Layer by Layer, just another well put together song, right? The melodies that Steve can pull off are just fantastic. And he starts out, take a piece of paper from the wall, take it in your hands and let it fall. Do you believe there's a reason for everything you see? Well, that's all right with me. Stand a little closer to the light. I want to see everything you try to hide in the night. Do you believe that there's somebody watching over you? I do believe that you do. And then take off the shades you wear. Can't you see that I just don't care? Layer by layer by layer. It'll come down to you. And he kind of goes on from there. I mentioned it at the start of the song while I was going on, but Gary Eaton on the bass actually gets some play here at the start of the song. The songs we've listened to so far have bass in them, obviously, but not highlighted. But it was highlighted at the start there. And just all of it really worked. I thought the backing vocals, especially hearing Victoria Williams on there, she sounded great. But just a well put together song, as all these have been. All right, now we're up to number 2, Amphetamine. Slade said, for my number 2 spot, I went all in on the energy, as the title of the song would also suggest. Amphetamine comes from the 2003 album Static Transmission, the first album credited to Steve Wynn in the Miracle 3, and the follow-up album to Here Come the Miracles. The official album was a single album consisting of 11 tracks, but the expanded release included an additional disc consisting of 8 outtakes, which are not much lower in quality compared to the original disc. So in reality, this was another double album. Especially the lead-off track on the second disc, Riverside, could easily have been included on the original album. The outtakes disc also includes an 8-minute-plus version of Bruce Springsteen's State Trooper, originally appearing on his Nebraska album. I have a reaction to that, by the way, and only lasting 3 minutes, 11 seconds there. Since this is billed as Steve Wynn in the Miracle 3, we know the musicians here, and I will not delve more into that, and just say that while the original version on Static Transmission is excellent, I suggest you actually react to the live version they did for KEXP in 2011. The song is pure adrenaline from start to finish, and I absolutely love every second of it. So we're going to watch the video, but which I actually like, because now I feel like I kind of know Steve from all this research that Slade said, sharing with us and hearing all these songs. Now we get to actually see them perform. Wow, Amphetamine, what a performance, right? Jason Victor just kills it on that guitar. Linda's fantastic on the drumming, and they're just, man, what a performance. I'm so glad that this was the song that Slade chose to let us watch live, because it is just so good. But all that is aside, right, the performance part of it is fantastic. You lose track of the fact that the lyrics are really good on this one. So I'm going to read them to you. On the seventh hour of the seventh day, the seventh son was looking for a seventh stage getaway. The word came down from a blinding light. You got one chance, you better do it right. I was driving down the 101. It was late at night, and I was thinking about the things that I'd done, all of my regrets and all of my fears. I was slipping the car from gear to gear to gear. Man, I really got going, started picking up speed. I hit 135 and I had everything that I need. Started shaking bad, fearing for my life. I let go of the wheel and I flew into the night. So, right, the instrumentation fits this so well. God bless the child, God bless his soul, God perish the idea that he will die before he's old. Got to be cool, you got to behave. Man, there'll be time for that when I'm lying in my grave. You got to watch your step. You're going to lose your way. Take heed of your elders. Do everything they say. Yeah, I got to watch out for the man who tolls the bells. But I fear for the devil and I fear for myself. But if I fear for the devil and I fear for myself, then I'm going to have to fear for everybody else. Man, that is definitely going to be my favorites. Not just because the performance was fantastic, but the songwriting is great. And now we're up to number one. There's no drama because you see it below. We got the song The Blue Drifter from the album Kerosene Man. Slade said, right, so we've arrived at the number one spot. Is this my preferred Steve Wynn song? I honestly don't know. I would actually say that it probably isn't his best song. However, there's something about the mood in this ballad, which it is, it just connects to me. This is the perfect late evening night song with some excellent saxophone playing by Steve Berlin. The funny thing is that I normally am not a fan of the saxophone at all. In fact, and this is probably borderline heresy, while I love Bruce Springsteen, one of the things I never loved was his fondness of using sax solos in his songs. It would have been so much better with guitar solos instead in most cases, but I realize I'm probably in the minority here. Look, I'm a huge Springsteen guy. If you watch this channel, you know that. I love Big Clarence, the big man. I do see what you're saying there, that you actually have a point to some extent. Although I still love the sax on Bruce's stuff. For this song, the saxophone works perfectly in all caps. It is 100% in line with the mood of the song, and the only bad thing about it is that it has to end eventually. So we finish with a song that's the total opposite of the song before it, from pure adrenaline to absolute calmness, and that's what Steve Wynn can do, and everything in between. The Blue Drifter, the saxophone absolutely works perfect on here, right? It comes on about 3 times on here, and just layered in, just so good. And the Blue Drifter, what a story, right? Outside of Memphis, got on the Greyhound. He sat next to me. He said, pathway I'm looking for, end of the line. I think I shouldn't think about it all that much. I guess I shouldn't think about it all the time. He had a woman, a family. He got restless. Now he just doesn't care. After a while, you lose direction. Follow the first path that you see, and you say, I never thought this could happen. Could never happen to me. Then he ends up with, here comes the Blue Drifter, lost on the highway, talks in a whisper, and he looks just like me. Great songwriting, man. Just fantastically put together song. And as Slade said, you would never dream, right, that Amphetamine and the Blue Drifter were from not only the same artist, but done at a level of excellence. Usually you can do one or the other and you throw the other in, right? Usually you're great at slow songs. You throw a fast song in every once in a while, or you're really good at fast songs like the hair metal bands did in the 80s, and you throw a little slow song in there. Usually you don't excel at both, and the songwriting though is so good. So Slade said was not lying on that. Not that I thought he was, but he always brings me fantastic stuff. We get to my favorite songs on here. Honorable mentions, we're going to go with the Blue Drifter. Layer by Layer, Cats and Dogs, and Silver Lining, my favorites. Freakstar, There Will Come a Day, and Layer by Layer. Yes, 7 of the 10 appear on this list. I couldn't really knock anything down. I liked every single song on here, and I hope we dive into Steve Wynn more later. I might listen to a little bit of him, but I'll probably hold off just in case at some point Slade said does another list. But I know Steve Wynn, the casino mogul. I did not know Steve Wynn, the musician, so I'm so glad that I do now. So thank you to Slade Said. Thank you to everybody for watching. If you like sports in a way as Slade does, check out the Patreon link below, the Patreon link on the end screen. Give us a thumbs up if you would, and hit that big red subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, I will see you.